Hello everyone, welcome to qualifying for round one of Project Endurance, the 8 hours of Shanghai. My name is Dan No Skill, and joining me today is Casper in the commentary booth. Casper, how's it going for you?
I'm absolutely brilliant. Glad to be here in China, round one, 8 hours of Shanghai. As you have mentioned, a brilliant track made by Herman Tilke early 2000s. I cannot wait. That turn one is going to be really difficult to negotiate. So it's going to be very interesting. But this is qualifying, not the race. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Definitely, and it's going to be an exciting qualifying today. We've got our GT3s and our Hypercars going out on track, and it's going to be a close one. We've seen all of these guys throughout pre-qualifying be really close together on time, so they're going to be pushing today to get themselves a great start on the grid for the race tomorrow. You can see some of our race information coming up here. We're going through the cars that we're going to be racing with. We've got our Lamborghinis, our Audis. What cars are you looking forward to seeing out there on track today?
I'm honestly looking forward to seeing the lot of them. I should clarify, for pre-qualifying, you mentioned that. The difference between the first position in that pre-qualifying and the drop zone was half a second.
Wow.
So it's going to be tight as you want in that GT3, and I imagine in that hypercar category as well. 90 cars. 90 different crews signed up for Season 5 record number for Project Endurance. And again, a record because we've got two different streams in two different languages going, as we've got the English stream now as well.
This is definitely turning into one of the biggest endurance leagues in not just sim racing, but on Assetto Corsa as well. And definitely the production value is through the roof. So a massive congratulations to the team who've been able to put this together. As we're starting to see our GT3 qualifying begin, we're getting a couple cars out on track. We see the number one car there, trundling around, getting some heat in the tires. The AOT Turtle Beach team also topping the times at the moment, but obviously no one's set a lap yet. So it's all to play for in the next 30 minutes of qualifying.
Yeah, it's all to play for. Should clarify, it is 30 minutes for the GT3s, then we've got a little bit of a break, and then it's 25 minutes for Hypercar. No more LMP2. Last season was their final farewell, as it were, and we're looking on board with the Cubic System 31 going through turn 4. After that, really, like, snail section? Like, it's really slow kind of thing. I'm not fully sure what to call it.
Yeah, it's a difficult track, this one. You've got a couple high-speed corners, but also a lot of heavy braking zones, and obviously that famous hairpin down towards the final sector. So it's going to be an interesting one, a tricky track to qualify well at, but if you can get yourself near the front, obviously you're going to be in a better position for the race tomorrow. And all of these drivers will be looking to maximize their lap time as they get some heat into the tires ready to begin qualifying.
There's most of the cars are on track. There's still a couple in the pit lane, and I think the first to cross the line is going to be the 905 Macca Racing crew, as they're just coming into the final corner now and starting a lap.
So this will be our first reference then for an actual fast lap. There's a couple cars still coming out the pit exit, so they're going to have to give way to these cars coming out fast laps. You can see him fling the car into the first corner there. And with these GT3 qualifying, oftentimes the drivers like to build themselves up. It's not like, oh dear, that's a big spin. As you were saying.
Yeah, that's the 666 Royal Racing crew. That is, very easy to lose it into turn one, especially if you haven't got the tyres up to temperature. But thankfully, there is a lot of asphalt runoff, so you don't need to worry too much about damaging your car. You will damage your tyres, though. So long term, not necessarily the greatest thing.
I think they'd much rather be doing that near the start of qualifying than near the end. Now, Apex 1 have put a time on the board, a 2-minute flat, which is a very quick time. One of the quicker ones than we saw even than pre-qualifying. And 3/10 behind them are Cubic System. So, the number one team are putting themselves there at the top of the leaderboard. Do you think that's going to be a good enough time for a provisional pole position? Or are we expected to see these drop below the 2-minute mark?
I think, given the fact that we've got still 24 and a half minutes left in qualifying, we can very easily see the times tumble even further. Not much, I don't think, but I think we might be able to just about get under that 2-minute mark. It's going to be quite interesting to see what these guys do, especially with tyre warm-up.
Definitely, because in these GT cars, like we were trying to say before, we had a bit of a spin. You have to ramp up towards your fastest laps. You know, it's not a one lap and then you're back into the pits, change the tires like in other series. You often want to be out on track for 10 minutes, get yourself used to it, get the tires in the right window, and then you can really go for your fastest lap with some low fuel in the car. So chances are we will see these times start to tumble as we head further into the qualifying session.
Yeah, there's actually still quite a few times that are becoming better. The 794 Grid Racing car is currently 0.3 up on its best after 2 sectors. And there's still even more times flooding in. Just looking at the live timing, the 217 Shigalka One Vision in 9th place currently. Where are they? They're coming through. Where have they gone? Oh, they've disappeared off my screen. Oh, there they are. Coming into turn 1. Didn't really improve their time, I don't think.
Often it can be tough, especially if you're coming out into traffic. You've got to navigate that as well. Not everyone's going to be kind with the blue flags. You can see here as we're on with the 217 car, they're getting stuck behind someone there. Now, if you are on a fast lap, you have no obligation to give room to the faster cars behind. If you're qualifying, it's up to them to find themselves a space on the track and, you know, try and make up the time. So we're seeing these guys back off a little bit potentially and give themselves a better run for the next lap.
Don't forget, you also don't really want to be too far away from the next car because the draft down the back straight, that back straight is long, very long, probably one of the longest, if not the longest, on the calendar. So you really want that draft. Don't go away too far from the car ahead. But again, careful for bad air through the corners.
Yeah, definitely dirty air versus the slipstream effect is always something drivers have to negotiate. You can see here the 905 car, Maka Racing, navigating their way through that tricky hairpin. They're going to be coming around the final couple corners now, taking a lot of curb there on the exit to try and maximize the speed through the corner. They're going to come across the line and, oh, they move into second with that lap there. Less than a tenth off first. What a performance.
That's a very good performance. Remember, the track limit is the curb where present, not just the line. So wherever there is a curb, that is the track limit. So the drivers can go on the curb, just like the 775 did, as they come across the line, going into second place. 4 thousandths ahead of the Maka Racing that we just saw. But yeah, use the curbs where you can, basically, as we're looking at the 31 coming into the pits.
Yeah, it might be a tire change, maybe potentially a spin, flat spotted, or just a regular fuel stop. Need to refuel and get themselves back out there. Interestingly, we see a couple teams towards the bottom. OC Racing, Squadra Corsa, and Race Spot Academy still yet to pop some times on the board. They'll want to hurry up and get going with that because you want to get yourself at least a banker lap in. So you've got a chance of being ahead of some people, and then you can maybe go for a full-on push lap.
Yeah, that's usually what we see, not just in endurance racing, but as a whole. The first lap is sort of a banker lap, as it were. Just make sure that you've got something on the board, and then you ramp up and go on from there. Fun fact just appeared on screen as well. Could have been a Season 3 track, Shanghai, the Grade 2 circuit, eligible to host up to 12-hour races, but since Suzuka actually worked, Shanghai was not required. But it makes its debut here at the Season 5 opener.
Yep, 2 seasons later, and we're finally here in China, ready to watch some racing. At the moment, a couple teams lighting up the timing sheets. We see the 775 car, which we're not on board with at the moment, went purple in Sector 1, but was down in Sector 2. Maka Racing, who we're watching at the moment, have gone purple in Sector 2. They're about to cross the line, and they moved themselves into provisional pole, a 2-minute 0.3. That's a 1/10 difference between Apex 1, who set their fastest time earlier on in the session.
Yeah, the margins are really, really tight. You have to look down to the gap between ninth and 10th for anything really over a tenth and a half. So it's still really tight. There's not much of a difference with the cars on track. Looking at the 98 OC Lifeless going into turn, I believe that's 11 and 12, tight little chicane braking zone. You've got to get that right, because then the exit onto the back straight. Apex 1 goes to provisional pole.
They've come right back at Macca Racing there. I believe in the OC racing car at the moment, we've got Sebastian Duran, a very quick driver across a couple different series. So he'll be looking to put in a top-level time for these guys today. They were struggling towards the start of the season to get the drivers organized, but have managed to sort everything out. Grid White Tigers, they're going to come across the line now. Let's see if they can improve their time. They're currently a second off the pace. And unfortunately, not moving anywhere closer, crossing the line there. Potentially an outlap. A couple teams still pushing through that first sector. There's definitely some time to be found there.
Yeah, the Grid White Tigers, they either made a mistake or it was an outlap. It was a 109 through the first sector, where we're usually looking at sort of low to mid 44s. So that's sort of the time we're looking at through the first sector. So maybe a mistake or something, but nowhere near a time. Here come the 18 Overcrest cars, finally putting a time in. Is it going to be valid, I wonder? No, I think they might just be starting one.
Oh, no, they've lost it through turn 1. Oh, dear. You could just see the rear sliding away there as they try to take too much speed in. And potentially, that's what happened on their last lap, and that's why they didn't manage to set a time. So a couple drivers still struggling with turn 1, 10 minutes into the session.
Yeah, quite possibly. We did see this, the crew you just saw on screen, the 666 WoyalRacing.pl team, do that exact same thing about 7 or 8 minutes ago. So again, drivers still struggling with turn 1, and all that means really is come the race tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be a brilliant opening to the race, I think.
Squadra Course Overcrest coming through the final section of the track. Hopefully they hooked up their first sector better than some of these other drivers. Yeah, like you said, don't want to be on cold tires at the start of the race and do something like that and take out a bunch of people, but hopefully they'll keep it clean. Let's see if these guys can improve their time. 2.5 seconds off pole position at the moment, and it's not an improvement. Again, possibly an outlap as these guys try and prepare their tires in the right way and make their way up the field.
Yeah, the first and second sectors were pretty promising for the Squadra Corsa 20 car, but it was their third sector that lost them time. So they stay in 18th place. The AOT Elmar car, 21st and second to last. So this isn't going to be an improvement. Their second sector was about 10 seconds off the pace as they head into the braking for the hairpin. Tightest corner on this circuit. Was that a bit of a lockup there?
Yeah, potentially some tire smoke coming off their car there, and that's the last thing you really want in a race car, isn't it? Is getting those lockups, flat spotting your tires. It's going to lose you time, not just in the corners or the braking zones, but also just on the straights, having to deal with those vibrations. So if you can avoid locking up and ruining those sets of tires, then you're going to be better suited to stay out for longer and really start pushing the car towards its limits.
The 775 car, purple through the first sector. Second sector triggers about now. It's slow through that second sector, but he could still look at improving his time as he comes down into, again, that hairpin at turn 14. Critical braking zone. Again, lock up there, smoke off the tyres, but still manages to exit nicely through to the other side of the track into the final corner. Final left-hander, pretty much 90 degrees, although slightly more open than that. Taking quite a lot of curb there, still within track limits to the line, and that's not an improvement despite a fastest final sector.
And a fastest first sector there. So they went purple in 2 sectors, but lost quite a bit of time in sector 2 by the looks of it. And either weren't able to improve enough or just couldn't quite get close enough to those guys at the top. But definitely, there's plenty of time to be found here. It's just all about hooking up the correct lap, which around a technical circuit like this is easier said than done.
Yeah, we were talking about it at the top of the show. It's difficult to do, but we could be looking at a sub 2-minute lap time. The fastest lap at the moment is the Apex 1 car with a 200.274, so we could very easily see that come down. Here comes the F and LRT car. The 222 goes up a position above the Royal car as they climb the grid to 2 minutes 691 there.
And they'll be pulling off onto the racetrack, ready to head back to the pits there, as they've probably be quite happy with that one. Every position does matter in endurance racing, in qualifying. I mean, you may think, oh, well, we've got an 8-hour race, you know, it doesn't matter too much if we have a poor qualifying session. But if you're starting towards the front of the grid, there's less chance of you being caught up in those midfield incidents at the start of the race, and it can lead to you getting a bit of a cleaner breakaway, which all helps in the grand scheme of things. So these guys will be pushing to get themselves as far up as possible that grid and make up every position they possibly can.
The 18 Team FDRS you're looking at on screen, well, you just were for a brief moment, must have hit track limits there because it was a relatively promising time. It would have been a time on the board, but must have somehow, somewhere triggered track limits there. So no time on the board for the 18 car. Has it just registered now? I'm just looking at the timing screen and it's just gone up slightly.
Interesting. Maybe a little bit of delay there. The 666 car we're looking at the moment were on a really quick lap. They were 0.3 up in Sector 1, but just couldn't keep it together through the final couple sectors and potentially pushing a little bit too hard towards the end there. But the fact all of our drivers are so close, I mean, just a second separates the top 10, shows room for a really promising qualifying session.
Yeah, all top 10 within, top 11 within 9/10 of a second. The top 20 is within 2.5. So there's still, there is a lot of time on the board, as we've seen, but it's really tight. And that is what we love. Overtaking can be done around this circuit. So qualifying, I don't want to say it's not as important, but it's still important, like you said, to avoid those midfield battles. But it's going to be interesting.
Definitely is. Still, Team FDRS not got a time on the board, so if they're going to be doing anything tomorrow, it's cutting through the pack. They've got to hook something up here. Maybe just take it a bit easy. Taking a lot of curb there, hopefully within track limits. Let's see, as they cross the line, are they going to go towards the top of the leaderboard? And again, no time, so they must have gone off track somewhere.
Yeah, I think it might have been through that final corner as well. That's my reckoning at the moment, because the first two sectors, again, it's not showing that there was any track limits violations or anything. So it could just be that can't get that final sector hooked up.
Maka Racing currently 0.2 up on their delta. Let's see as they round the final couple corners. They're about to go across the line. Will this be enough for a provisional pole? Oh, and it's not quite. Couldn't just keep it on the track. And unfortunately, yeah, they've not managed to improve. A slow final sector there from those guys.
Yeah, I think unfortunate there, because that first and second sector was pretty damn good going for the pole position, but no move there. Race spot currently in 18th place heading into turn 1. That's pink and white car mainly, keeping it tight to the curbs and then going wide on that second apex and then cutting it back through 3 and then exit here through the left at 4. Looking at the Park Motorsport, I think that's 907.
Yeah, they're about to cross the line, try and improve their time or start a new lap. Unfortunately for them, not able to move up any positions. They're stuck behind the OC Racing team at the moment in 6th, but 6th still a very good position to start the race from if you're even in hunt for a podium. As we ride on board through this first sector, I just want your opinion on this. I always feel that this first couple, turn 1, 2, and 3 are very clumsy turns to really get a hang of. You know, the car likes to slide through there. It's difficult to get on power. And just a quick mention that Apex 1 have extended their lead at the top.
Yeah, that first sequence of corners can be clumsy. But again, it's quite easy to go too wide, go for a battle. It's actually like a quite good complex of corners. It is a little bit clumsy though, difficult to pull off consistently, I think. So yeah, no, I fully agree with you on that one.
Yeah, definitely tricky, especially in very heavy cars like these where it's easy to catch some understeer and you want to get it rotated as easily as possible. We're looking on board with the 217 car. They're heading, I believe, down the back straight here towards the end of their lap. Currently, they've had 2 green sectors, 4/10ths up on their time, which will be enough to move them up a good couple of positions. But they lock up into the last corner. You can see the steering angle was very tight through there. Is it going to be still enough to improve their lap time? Only time will tell. They've got to keep it clean through the last corner. Do not cut. And oh, they pulling in. They've pulled into the pits. Oh no, they didn't.
Yeah, they've pulled into the pits. Back end. I thought that was back end sliding there for the Apex 1 car through that long banked right hander and then onto the back straight. That's probably the worst place to let your back end slide because of this long straight that we've got. If you make any mistake through that corner, your speed at the end is going to be impacted by multiple kilometers an hour.
Maka Racing looking to make an impact then, as well as we saw Apex making a couple mistakes, and they've got the 775 Keisha team just behind them. I love that livery with the leopard. They're always going for a very similar theme. It looks great.
Yeah, no, the 775, probably one of my favorite liveries, of course. For anybody that doesn't know, Kichi is sort of like colloquial for cat. So it makes sense for them to actually go for a cat-based livery. 7.5 minutes to go in qualifying, though, and it's tight at the top.
We'll see if Cubic can make an impact. They went green in Sector 1, but just losing the time through Sector 2 and 3. There is the potential, these guys just pushing the tires a little bit too hard early on in the lap and then losing the grip towards the end of it with some possible overheating issues. We know these cars are heavy. Do you think that could be the case?
Definitely. I mean, the first and second sectors are pretty tire heavy. I mean, you've got turn 1. We're looking on with the Cubic car through turn 4 as well, into the S's at 6, 7, and that technical section at, I think that's 9 and 10, just on exit for the White Tigers on your screen. So, you know, the first couple of sectors are really heavy on your tyres, and then you do have an opportunity for them to cool down on that back straight, but it's probably not enough to make enough of an impact.
Could potentially be. And these guys as well, Grid White Tigers, who we were just looking at now, looks like they have had some track cuts on this lap, so will likely not be improving their time as they've gone off just a bit too wide over the curbs, which can happen when you're pushing the car. It can be difficult to judge where that white line is sometimes, and you can just end up sneaking over it. And usually, if you're like me, you'll blame the track and not yourself.
Yes, a typical racing driver excuse is blame anything but yourself. Don't worry, I do the same thing as well. But yeah, it's pretty easy to hit track limits. It is the white line, unless it is the curb, as it says in the race director's notes that I looked at before. So, you know, you could be thinking there's a curb there, but there isn't. You can very easily make a mistake around here.
OC Racing, who we're watching on board with at the moment, were flying through Sector 1. They're slightly down through Sector 2, but they're coming along this back straight now. They're going to be looking to see if they can try and make any improvements. They've got to keep it tidy through this hairpin. You see the smoke coming off the brakes and the tires there as they get very hot, slowing the car down from hundreds of miles an hour to that hairpin. They're about to round the final corner. They take a lot of curb there. Is it within track limits? We'll soon find out. They're going to cross the line to try and improve, and unfortunately for them, not able to, again losing the time a little bit in those second and third sector. That's where everyone's struggling at the moment.
Yeah, that final corner was within track limits, and with the purple first sector, you'd think there was something in terms of, you know, pace and possibly being able to hold it together, but can't do that, unfortunately. Elmar 21 car coming across the line, I think, was that a violation?
They had one in Sector 2, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So no improvement there. 2:13.9 for that crew so far. So they've got 2, maybe 3 opportunities if they want to improve. So they've got to make this count if they want to, well, start anywhere other than the very back.
It's interesting. You can choose, obviously, which driver you want to put in for qualifying as we're heading towards the final 5 minutes of this session. We'll see if anyone can make any inroads towards Apex at the top. But, yeah, you would think you'd put in a driver who's feeling confident about qualifying and maybe has some you know, experience in doing that. But at the end of the day, everyone does have off days, and it can be difficult, especially if you're not confident on the track, to put together that lap on the day. So maybe AOT just struggling with that a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. Something worth mentioning, because I've only just realised this. The 31 Cubic car and the 98 OC Racing Lifeless car have both got the exact same time. At a 2-minute 0.598 to the thousandth of a second. That's just brilliant.
And of course, if you were OC Racing at the moment, you would be quite disappointed, wouldn't you, that you've set that time just after Cubic did, so you'll be starting 5th if things don't change by the end of this session. Macca Racing, green first sector, and you can see they're absolutely pushing the car through this technical second sector, taking as much of the tarmac up as they can to maximize their speed around this corner. They're going to get onto the back straight and hopefully catch a glimpse of a slipstream from the guys in front of them, maybe a little bit far away to feel too much benefit, but it was track limit violations through Sector 2, so unfortunately for them, again, it was quick too, a very quick Sector 2, but just gone outside that white line.
Yeah, I was going to say, through turn 10, I think that's where we managed to just about catch the track limits violations. We've got 2 minutes left of qualifying, 2 minutes 20 if we're going to be specific, so final laps are going to be coming in ever so soon, so it's going to be brilliant to see as we can see the Macca car running, well, almost into Russia there.
I think that's a strategy to get just that little bit more speed into turn 1, because if you've already invalidated your lap, you're not going to invalidate the next one by doing that. Could be some sneaky tactics there from the Macca Racing team, just trying to maximize their lap time. AOT Elmar at the moment, they're trying to push themselves. They've got off that back row finally. They're into 10.
Hey.
So things going well for them. Let's see if they can make an impact in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement from the back row to the 5th row. Something on the Macca Racing, I'm pretty sure there's a thing in the regulations where if you invalidate through a final corner or a specified section at the end of the track, your next lap is then invalidated. So possibly something to look into, but I don't particularly want to get ahead of myself, especially because it's a green first sector. So
it is a green
it could
first
be
sector.
an improvement for the Macca crew. They're currently 93 thousandths off of pole position.
But the team we're right on board with at the moment, the 666 car, have gone purple through Sector 1. Let's see what their Sector 2 time is going to be like. It's green, so Voil Racing are going really fast through this first couple sectors. They've got to keep it together down this back straight and into the hairpin. Heavy braking zone here. Use some curb. Swing the car around. Let those tires smoke a little bit into the final corner. It's fine. We've seen everyone do that today. And then on the power, hard as possible for this fast left-hander, where it's so easy to go wide. Misses the apex a little bit. I think just keep it within the track limits there. We'll see. It was fast through sector 1, 2, and they moved themselves up into 4th. They'll be happy with that final lap. Well done.
That was a very good final lap. Yeah, just about keeping it within track limits as well. So good stuff there for the Royal crews. Got 10 seconds left. So any driver that does start a lap within the next couple of seconds can continue it. But have we got any more coming up now? I don't think we do. So final laps are on.
Yes, so Maka Racing look like they're going to be at the back finishing the lap last, unless we have a couple cars pulling into the pits, so just letting them through. Apex 1, AOT Turtle Beach have pulled off to the side, gone back to the pits there, they've crashed. We're seeing a couple green sectors come through from teams lower down, but Maka Racing are the ones we're really going to be keeping our eye on, because if they can get a good last lap in, they could be on for pole position.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Maka Racing is certainly something to keep an eye on, especially given their pace. It's not an improvement through that first sector, but it's better than the Apex crew are doing currently. It's about 400ths of a gap between the two on their current laps. The second sector trigger is sort of about a third of the way through the back straight.
It is. Makes it difficult to sometimes judge where these cars are. Grid White Tigers put themselves into the top 10 for now. We're about to see a couple other cars crossing the line, so we'll see how the grid changes towards the end of qualifying. They're all pushing the limits, you can tell. Park Motorsport, they don't move anywhere, but OC Racing getting pushed down by someone there. Couple cars to cross the line still. Here come OC Racing now. They're going to try and make back that position. They've still got the exact same time as Cubic System, so we'll see if they can find even 100th of a second will be enough.
Yeah, it's going to be quite tight, and I think they might have just about done that, as Cubic are up into 5th place with a 2 minute 0.453. Interstellar Midas haven't moved up any additional positions, as Apex have now crossed the line, and so have Maka, and Apex remains on pole position.
What a great qualifying session then. I believe that is all of our GT3 cars across the line who started a valid lap. There's still a couple out on track, so we'll see what they end up doing. But I believe that our grid is well and truly set for the race tomorrow. As you see Apex drifting around the corners there, they must be very happy about that pole position.
I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you celebrate a pole position? Especially because it's the first one of the season. Start as you mean to go on. It's just brilliant, especially this early in the season. But that's GT3 qualifying.
It was indeed. We can run you through our top 10 very quickly. On pole position for tomorrow, after, of course, stewards will check everything. We've got Apex 1 taking up the second grid stop, and starting on the front row with them is Maka Racing, just under a 10th behind, so very close between those two. Expect some good racing tomorrow. Then the FNL car, the 222, they take up third, starting on the second row, followed by the 775 car, who again put in a 2-minute lap time. These guys were all so close together. Cubic System managed to pull away from OC Racing, who they were tied on times with, and they moved themselves into 5th. Voil Racing, with that outstanding purple first sector, went fastest there. They managed to get 6th, and OC Racing 7th behind. Then Park Motorsport, again, a lot of Mercedes up here in this top 10. They take up 8th. Grid White Tigers and AOT Turtle Beach take up 9th and 10th on the grid. And all of those guys, apart from Turtle Beach, in the 2 minutes.
Yeah. So now we're moving on to the Hypercar session, which is all going to be the BMW Hypercar, or a rough equivalent to the BMW Hypercar. We saw a couple of different brands with the GT3s, but it's just one make, one model, and it's going to be brilliant because it's it's going to force drivers to do their best with what they're given, kind of thing.
Definitely, and that basically means it's all down. I mean, there's some setup skill involved with these cars, obviously, but it is mostly down to the drivers. We saw in GT3 the Mercedes looking like potentially has a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field. A lot of those guys heading towards the top. But still, it looked like a reasonably mixed grid. Only 2.6 seconds, the gap from P1 to last in GT3 quali. So a very tight grid if you know endurance racing for endurance races. Very tight indeed.
Yeah, 7 of the top 10 cars were the Mercedes. We've got 2 Lambos and a Lexus as well. But it's still incredibly, incredibly tight. But now that, there we go, the system has reset. So we are now moving to the Hypercar session officially. 25 minutes. And again, it's a similar session where you can do as many laps as you want. We saw most drivers do about 13 or 14. In GT3, we expect drivers to do sort of similar for Hypercar.
We see some fun facts popping up, haven't we? And interestingly, some of the GT3 drivers doing more. They have done in pre-qualifying thousands of laps, nearly 10,000 laps in GT3 alone, and I believe around 8,000 for the hypercars. So these guys putting in a hell of a lot of practice for this stuff too. So a big thank you to all of the drivers for not just turning up today, but putting in so much good practice and providing us with some great qualifying sessions to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And if anybody knows Shanghai, oh my word. Okay. Had me worried there for a second. If anybody knows Shanghai, if anybody's seen actual endurance racing at Shanghai, you know that you can do all sorts of stuff. There's plenty of opportunities to make a move. And because it's an 8-hour race, there's plenty of time to make a move. And especially with things like long stops as well, which is going to be explained in the race, and all sorts of other strategical changes and decisions they have to make. It's going to be an interesting thing, and especially, as you can see on screen, Season 5 is the first in Project Endurance without LMP2.
And we will miss LMP2, won't we? It was a great, fun little class that separated your top-level cars between your GT cars, but it does also mean that we've got more drivers spread out between these two categories now, and we've seen the grid for GT3 was very full, and don't get me wrong, the grid for Hypercar is also extremely full. We've got around 22 cars ready to take part in this session at the moment, so they're all going to be excited to get out on track for the first qualifying session, see where they're at after the season break.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're expecting sort of like, from what I saw earlier, we're expecting about 147s-ish from the brief moments that I was looking at over the week. We are expecting sort of mid 140-ishes, so 45, 46, 47s in terms of a time. And again, like, I'm just going to briefly go back to LMP2s because it does change things in terms of like a strategy, because for hypercars, it's less traffic. For GT3s, they don't have to worry necessarily as much about cars that are going to overtake them. Right, so it does change the dynamic of a strategy for a car.
Speaking of traffic, we saw these two cars getting rather close up together, but you're right, strategy will massively come into play in the race, which is part of the reason why I think I love qualifying so much as well, though, is because you don't have that strategy coming into play so much, you know, it's just the drivers, one with the car on a low fuel load, just trying to push it to the absolute limit as fast as they possibly can, and that's where you see some really impressive laps coming through. We're starting to get people just warming their tires up, getting across the line and beginning their laps now. What's the aerodynamic difference between these cars and the GT cars?
Well, generally the GT cars are heavier, so through the slow speed, they're going to be faster than the hypercars, right? But through more high-speed corners, you're thinking the S is in the middle of the circuit, through that long right-hander we've just been through as well, it's going to be considerably faster. The hypercars generally have a bit more aerodynamics, but crucially, the GT3s have more actual mechanical grip. So some cars, so the GT3s might be slower through the faster corners, but they're going to be faster through the slow corners, if that makes sense.
It does make sense indeed. It's different how it's interesting how these cars work, and that obviously comes into play when you're having to lap traffic as well. It can make it difficult in those slow speed corners to get past some of those GT cars, especially considering these cars are getting wider and wider as well. LMP2 being a famously quite small division of cars, whereas Hypercar and GT are relatively wide. So we're just getting the cars reforming back after a quick warm up, and they'll be going out for a proper qualifying session here in China.
It's going to be very interesting to say. You mentioned about the width of these cars as drivers are coming out of the pit lane now, 25 minutes to go pedal to the metal. But the cars generally are a little bit wider than they were before. Of course, we know that for instance, the BMW GT3 car generally is just wide. But with Hypercar, you only have to fit 4 parameters. Power, weight, drag, and downforce. Beyond that, you can do what you want, but nothing like that. We've just seen a car go absolutely aerial. Not sure if in the Hypercar spec you're allowed to have rocket boosters in your car, but we'll pass that.
I think that's an Adrian Newey design we've got there, so... it could be one to watch out for pole position.
Adrian Newey would have probably figured out how to stick the car to the floor, I would imagine, given his aerodynamic prowess, as it were. I mean, we're seeing that in F1 nowadays, anyway. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because again, it's one car, one make, not much difference in terms of setup. It's going to be thrilling.
We can see already these guys have all been desperate to get out on track and get a lap going. They're all bunched up, ready to start qualifying, which I'm not sure if that's the best idea. I would personally, I like to have a little bit of space on track. I don't want to be caught in dirty air, and I don't want either to be catching to the guy ahead of me or have someone sniffing my rear end. But these guys are all very close together going into this final hairpin, so they'll have to spread out a bit if they want a bit of clean air.
Yeah, but again, there's the question of, do I want the slipstream? Do I not want the slipstream? You do want the slipstream, but at the cost of dirty air through the middle sector? Maybe. It's sort of a little bit of the payoff that you've got to think about. Have you gone low drag? Have you gone high drag? It's all these things that you've got to consider long term.
Definitely. And the best thing about endurance racing and the such on... online and sim racing rather than in real life is these guys can have drastically different qualifying and race setups. So you could see someone go with a high downforce setup in qualifying and then, like you said, catch that slipstream and then go a little bit lower in the race as they think they might be running in cleaner air. Or it could be the opposite way round. We won't know until these teams decide tomorrow or if they are willing to tell anyone.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the leaderboard to show up on the left side of your screen. So far, fastest first sector goes to the 446 RaceSpot QS team, but that was immediately taken by the OC Racing Lopen 99 crew as they're heading through the first sector. The second sector is really tight, really twisty. There's quite a lot of technical sections in there as well. The 32 GLS PXN car now has taken the fastest first sector, 39.4, as we're looking at, I believe that is the OP crew.
This is the OC Racing crew. I believe they've got a Lasse driving at the moment, who is, again, a very skilled racing driver. I can attest to that. Racing in a couple championships against him before. So, yes, I'm excited to see where he will come. He's currently fastest through Sector 2, and he's going to be our onboard reference coming into the final corner. You can see how much later they are on the brakes than the GT3 cars, and the car just absolutely slows down. He's going to get himself on the power into the final corner and swing it left over this bumpy curb onto the exit. Use as much of it as possible without going over the line. I think that was all good from Lasse. Currently fastest time from the 175 car. Let's see what OC Racing can do. They're third at the moment, 8/10 down off Pestronus Cintium.
Yeah, the 175 crew, they've got the fastest final sector. We've got more times flooding in at the moment. There's quite a few track limits excursions, mainly through that final sector. The 899, the 446, the 71, the 75, 32, 61, 117. They're all hitting track limits through that final sector. And that final sector is really only the hairpin and then that left-hander. So I'm going to assume that it's that left-hander that's tricking them. And yeah, it's really tight, that left-hander.
Yeah, you can see all of these guys are pushing as hard as possible through that final corner to just get as much speed on the last final straight as they can, and that's what's tripping a lot of them up with track limits. We've got GLS-PXN currently a 146.2, which is, I think you were saying, about a 147, so you're bang on there with what our pole time could be, and I expect this to drop as half of our cars haven't even set a lap time yet, so there's definitely some tight competition out here. Apex 1, their Hypercar, obviously on their GT3 already on pole, and they're now in P2, so they've set themselves up well at the start of this qualifying session. Let's see if anyone else violates the track limits on the final corner as we're watching this last little straight now.
Yeah, we've just seen Kichita Mafia Corleone go into second place, a brilliant lap, fastest middle sector as well. Apex 1 goes into third, so it's third and fourth for the crew, but that was immediately bettered by the 175. These guys are all sort of in one line, which is good for the slipstream, because they're going to be catching the slipstream off of each other, but there's times coming in constantly bettering. 91 AOT Turtle Beach goes fastest, 146.686.
Yeah, that's put them on provisional pole position, and by quite a big margin. So, and I'm pretty sure we saw earlier in the lap these guys having a bit of a lockup as well, which says to me there's a lot of time to be found out here on the track. You mentioned a couple drivers driving in a line like that together. If someone's quick ahead of you, you can sometimes find yourself sort of copying their lines, which may be why we're seeing all of those guys get such similar lap times together. They're all sort of following one another through the corners. But it was actually the Turtle Beach car, which was on its own a little bit, who've put together the fastest lap for now.
Yeah, generally when you're following another car, you can sort of copy them. You're sort of seeing what they're doing, and you can see, okay, I'm slower here. Let's follow them through that, see what line they're taking. That's generally what you do also in terms of overtaking, because you see where they're weak, where they're strong, where can I make that move. That's why endurance racing is good, because you've got that time to make the move. You've got 8 hours to make moves, right? So you've got, okay, I'll spend a few minutes behind you, figure out how good you are, and where can I make a move on you.
Exactly. It gives you a lot of time to learn the track, learn new lines, and learn new spots from people who could potentially be faster than you, and just build your confidence. Let's see where the 731 Voil team end up. They were looking really quick, and across the line, they're still in 7th. That was a decent lap from them. 3 green sectors, an improvement. They'll be happy with that.
They'll definitely be happy with that. Another crew with 3 green sectors is the 42 GLS PXN car. Currently green through both the first and the second sectors. They're coming into the hairpin now at turn 14. Nicely handled by that car as they're going to go into, again, this final corner, trickiest of them all. Let's see how he handles it very, very nicely indeed. And then it's down to the line. Can he go faster? He can go faster, but not by enough for a position. I think that was about 3/10, 300ths even up on his personal best, so he stays in second.
Yeah, that was a really competitive lap from those guys. Interestingly, it looked like they didn't take that much exit curb through the final corner. Very conservative there, which you can understand if they're on a really fast lap, but had they taken a bit more, could it have been enough for potentially provisional pole?
Quite possibly. 7/10 through one corner isn't impossible, but considering the speed that you're going through that corner, you'd need to make up a little bit more just throughout the circuit in general. Speaking of just circuits in general, one track that won't be making its debut is the 24 Hours of Daytona, the finale, the grand finale of Season 5. That's quite a way down the line, but the rest of the season, brand new tracks for PE.
Going to be exciting to see. Obviously, it means these guys not going to have as much practice, and that basically means it's going to be a whole lot more exciting for us to watch because they're going to be worried about it. Let's see. We're riding on board the 61 Apex car. They've not set a time yet. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's 3 cars that haven't set a time yet. The Apex 1 car, green through the first sector, so far it's good. But again, there's quite a few tricky sections, but they've just navigated through one of them, turn 13, and then it is foot to the floor down this back straight. We'll see what happens through the middle sector. So 40.7, so it's not too bad in terms of pace. I reckon probably around about a mid-pack position. Here we go into turn 14, braking, locking up. A lot of cars seem to be struggling with locking up into that final hairpin, and then into turn 16, the left-hander. Is he going to break track limits? It's going to be a constant talking point throughout the race as a whole, but here he comes, goes to pole position.
Wow, that was a quick lap. Yeah, no purple sectors, but kept it very clean, and I actually thought a bit of a mistake through the final corner there and looked like they missed the apex, but no, if that was good enough for pole position, then Apex 1, the 61 car, locks it out, and their 51 car moves themselves into the top 3, so a really strong showing. If they can lock out, I mean, imagine if they lock out not only pole in GT3, but pole in Hypercar, that would be impressive.
I mean, again, starters you mean to go on. If you get pole here, that momentum is going to keep going into not just this race, but also the races, the next races in, I believe it's Hockenheim next. So, it's going to be very important, especially to make that pole position, make that move, so that you've got the momentum going into Hockenheim, into Istanbul at the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, you're going to want to have the confidence from turn 1 in the next few rounds. Let's see if the 16 car can get themselves a good time on the board. They're pulling in. Oh, they're flying. Well, that's okay.
Love that. Oh, my word. Yeah, that's not quite a conventional way to enter the pits, I don't think. But, as long as they make it work, I suppose.
Maybe Lewis Hamilton in 2007 could have taken some tips.
Oh, quite possibly. We're talking about Apex 1. They've gone purple in the first sector. It's a yellow second sector, so not an improvement, but they've just gone into the pit lane, so no second pole position time, as it were, for the Apex cars. But first, third, and eighth, that's a very good going for the Apex crew.
Well, and the car in number 3 is also lighting up the timing sheets. 2 green sectors so far. So they could be looking for... Oh, and they just invalidated in the last sector. That's disappointing. That could have been... I mean, that could have been potentially pole position. They were a 10th up. It might have just been P2, though, looking at the delta as quick as I can there, which isn't always the most accurate. Yeah,
it's a 46.551, so it would have been pole position if they'd have kept it within track limits, but... clearly making a mistake, most likely, again, through that final corner. That final corner is incredibly difficult.
Does show us at least, though, that there's still time to be found out on the track there. OC Racing and Lasse Pilot in the car are looking to find it in this number 99. They've gone green in Sector 1, and they're making their way through this tricky Sector 2 onto the back straight. We'll see in a minute if they're up or not. They're using a lot of curb there. They've got the Mystic Void team ahead of them, catching the slipstream from those guys. We'll see if either of these two can make any positions.
Yeah, I thought for a brief moment that the green car behind, I believe, is that the OC Racing car?
Yes.
Yes, I thought they hit track limits through turn 13, but it was all A-OK. Here comes the Mystic Whale car. Go from 11th. Can he improve his time? No, he can't. Stays in 11th place. And so does the OC Racing crew. 11 minutes and, almost 11 seconds to go.
Ah, 11:11. They say it's a lucky time for some. We'll see if anyone is having luck out here on the track. A big lockup into the final corner again from the 117 car, but we've seen that can actually be the fastest way around this circuit. Someone diving into the pits behind. They're about to cross the line, and they move up into 9th. A big improvement for those guys there, getting themselves towards the top 10, towards those high-scoring points positions.
Yeah, the gaps. I'm just looking at the gaps. It's tight. Pardon me, tight as. There's multiple gaps where it's less than 100th, mind you. So from 4th to 5th is 600ths, 5th to 6th is 1100ths, 6th to 7th is 500ths. So I'm not sure it could get much tighter, but I'm hoping that these guys surprise me.
If we compare as well with our GT3 qualifying, the gap between first and last was 2.6 seconds. If we ignore number 16, who have been having some issues, but they're currently on a good lap, then we have an even smaller gap between first and last in Hypercar. So that just shows how competitive these two grids are at the moment.
And it's not like there's much more cars in GT3. No, there's only 2 more cars in GT3 than in Hypercar. So it's not much of a difference in terms of, car spread, and yet the gap itself is considerably smaller. It's brilliant. I love it.
Certainly making things exciting for us. The other Apex 1 team stays in 8th. They'll be looking to their fellow teammates and hoping they can get a little bit closer. Let's see. Finally, the 16 car gets a time on the board and moves themselves into 12th, which isn't too bad for their first lap if they're suffering as well with a bit of connection issues. Always makes it difficult to race with.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there for the Shigalka team. They are now within a second of pole position, but then again, all the 14 cars are within a second of pole position. So it's tight as you want. SD or Vision, the 117 car going around turn 1, currently in 3rd place at the moment. I think they've just jumped up into there for race 23 overall here at Project Endurance. And of course, the first one with English commentary.
And so far, I think this commentary is going very well. We're having some great fun watching over this session. And yeah, the field still lighting up the timing sheets. The 117 car, like you said, going into 3rd place is very impressive from them. And I'm sure Apex 1 will try and have a response to that.
Definitely. 731 Mystic Royal team, 39.5 through the first sector. So could be looking definitely at an improvement. They're coming through the second sector now. Let's see what happens with their trigger. Goes 40.9. So again, a lot of good pace being shown by that Mystic Royal car. Could be jumping up a couple of positions if they can keep that pace going, locking up into 14, through the kink at 15. And then again, it's that final devilish little left-hander. Cutting the curbs quite a lot. I'm not sure, but we'll go across the line. I think that must have been a violation. No, it was just slower.
Yeah, just
lost
a lot of time through the last sector there. They were up 4/10 at one point, which would have pushed them towards the front of the field, but yeah, like you said, just lost the time. However, AOT Turtle Beach, they have gone purple in Sector 1. They've gone green in Sector 2. And we see just how close they are to pole position. So they'll be looking to get their car onto provisional pole. Heavy braking into that final hairpin. It's interesting, they're not all using a ton of track on the exit of that corner. They're keeping it relatively tight, ready for this one, where again, bouncing over those curbs, that's very much within track limits. They should be fine with that. Across the line, and that's provisional pole for the Turtle Beach team. What a lap.
Good stuff. 146.511. Again, there's still plenty of time to be found because they're not fastest, second fastest, third. So there is still time yet to be found. Whether the drivers will find it, though, is a whole other story. 899 Kichita Mafia Capone, not Corleone, currently half second down on that fastest first sector. They're coming through turn 13 now, going down the back straight. We're looking at the Apex 1 car, currently in 3rd spot. And then Kichita Mafia Corleone car currently, hits track limits through that second sector, so an invalid lap. for the Corleo Capote guys.
51 car, interestingly there, moved themselves back into third ahead of SD Esports. They set a purple final sector. Let's see if the 899 car is going to move themselves off the last spot, and they don't, unfortunately, for those guys, so they're going to still be stuck down there at the back of the grid for now. That's the last place you want to be starting an 8-hour race.
Yeah, I mean, the hit track limits through the second sector, which is unfortunate for those guys. Just looking at the times, there's nothing much going at the moment. But again, it's worth mentioning the gap from top to bottom is less than 1.5 seconds, which again goes to show A, the caliber of these guys, B, how closely matched they are, and C, I think this is going to be an exciting race.
Certainly, if you're tuning in tomorrow to watch this 8-hour-long race, you're going to be in for a lot of action. We can see just how close all of the field are, especially at the top, which, of course, as much as some people won't want to admit it, is usually the most exciting part of the race. But even down into your midfield, these guys are barely separated. So there's going to be a lot of action. And as I always say with endurance racing, it's completely unpredictable. You never know what's going to go on with strategy, with crashes, with lapped traffic. It's always all to play for.
No, absolutely. You never know what's going to happen. And that's part of the beauty of racing, because anything can happen. And just like that, your race is turned upside down. Could be full course yellow, safety car, red flag, whatever. Something happens and your race is like, okay, right, what do I do? You've got to constantly be on your feet. And that's what these drivers, their engineers, their crews have got to be doing. But anyway, less than 5 minutes of qualifying. We'll look at the RaceSpot QS 446 car going into the hairpin at 14, locking up, as most cars have been doing. Not particularly a surprise, into the final corner, going wide there.
Oof.
So that is a track limits violation, no time set there. But what time would it have been, I wonder?
It looked to me like they may have lost any of the advantage they were gaining through the first sector, which is unfortunate for them. They're just, I mean, being on the fringes of the top 10 like that, you think if I've just got a couple tenths in me, I could be there. But, you know, it's impressive. They're only half a second down off pole position, which is by no means slow. And these guys are going to be looking for better spots. Big lockup from SD. Oof. We'll see if that's quicker.
Yeah. Here he comes. He's wiggling about a little bit, trying to possibly warm up the tyres. And going very wide. Back end sliding there. So, again, I imagine he's going to go... Again, he's got enough time for 2 more attempts, should he want them, as he heads into turn 1. GLSPXN Racing into 7th place, just under a quarter of a second off pole position. And again, the margins here are tight. 15 cars within a second of pole position.
You think realistically any one of these guys within the top 8, if they can just if they can perfect the corner or find a little bit more time throughout the whole track, they could realistically be in with a shot at pole position here today. If 2 tenths, any driver will tell you they've got 2 tenths in them. So I don't think pole for any of those guys is out of the question.
I honestly don't think pole for pretty much anybody within the top 12, I'd even go as far as saying, is out of the option. There's plenty of spaces where you can make a mistake and you can improve on the next lap. So there's very much an opportunity to catch up, even half a second, depending on how your earlier laps have gone. Remember, most of these guys have hit 10 or 11 laps, some even 12 from what I'm looking at. So there is a lot of experience already with this rubbered-in track.
Yeah, like we said, so it's similar with GT3. These guys staying out for a long time and just putting in lap after lap after lap, hoping that as the fuel goes down and the tires warm up, they can continue to find more and more grip and also just build their own confidence with the track. The more you drive around, the more your nerves ease, and the more you want to push it into certain corners. We're seeing, I think, at the moment, in the top sort of 10, lighting up the timing sheets is the number 3 Apex 1 car. car. They're currently green in Sector 1. So, again, within a shot of pole position. We'll see if anyone else, as they cross the line... Ooh, that's not the racing line, buddy. We'll see if anyone else is able to get themselves towards the top.
Yeah, the 51 down through the second sector, but again, could still very easily improve and can go again if they would like to. They have the opportunity to, well, they have the opportunity to lock up as they just have. They have the opportunity to go again. There's still 50 seconds, and they're going to cross the line with probably about 35 to go. So they can go again if they would like. We'll see where the Apex one comes out. It was the fastest final sector, but it was, again, 9 thousandths slower than his personal best.
That is very disappointing for those guys. They clearly Sector 2 there, just some kind of mistake that lost them a bit too much time. They're so close as well to their teammates in second. That top 3 tomorrow is going to be an absolute battle to watch on track.
Oh, I think I would imagine, well, we're looking at qualifying at the moment. We can't really deduce race pace from this, but it's going to be very interesting, I think, just across the field.
Certainly. I think you're going to have a lot of these guys towards the back as well. If maybe not hooked together the best lap, try and make their way towards the front of the field. It looks like we've got a couple drivers yet to come across the line, but no one making massive inroads towards the front. So our provisional poll set a bit earlier on in the session. It was a very exciting session to watch, but no one else quite making their way.
Apex 151 is up through his first sector. Ooh. And I think that might be the only sort of time that could challenge, unless OC Racing can make something work of that, but they can't. Second sector is still up. It's an improvement, but not quite as fast as the 61 car. I think the 61 car has come across the line. They have gone to pole position, but here comes the 51 into the turn 14 hairpin. There's only one more corner to negotiate, but it's arguably the most difficult of the lot. Swing it left, avoid the track limits, nicely done, and then across the line. What can the Apex 1 do? It's an improvement, but not by a position. He starts third, and the 61 does look to be on pole position for the 8 hours of Shanghai.
So there we go, 2 Apex 1 cars making up pole position for the 8 hours of Shanghai. Very nearly, a front row lockout in Hypercar for the Apex 1 team. Just separated barely by the AOT Turtle Beach, who plot themselves into P2 for tomorrow's race. What a great qualifying session we have just watched there with these Hypercars. No one else quite able to make something work. You've got SD in 4th. They'll be starting just behind on the second row, and then OC Racing in 5th, making up that top 5, and all of those guys separated by about 3/10 at most, 2/10.
Yeah, the whole field is, I think, split by 1.4 seconds, which, considering we've got 20 cars, is a hell of a stat.
It really is. Yeah, if you would have to normally pay to see racing like this, but instead you're getting it for free tomorrow when the race starts at Shanghai. But what a qualifying session we had. That was really exciting. And yeah, if I was all those teams, especially if I'm Apex 1 right now, I'm feeling really good. Getting 3 cars, well, I think they got 4 cars out of both categories into the top 10, didn't they, in 2 pole positions.
Yeah, 2 pole positions, 3 cars in the top 10 in Hypercar, and then, of course, the pole position in GT3. It's going to be a brilliant race. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central European time, midday UK time, is when the stream's going to kick off. So I guess we'll see you there.
Yeah, we will indeed. I mean, just thoughts on this qualifying session as a whole. It was great fun to watch. We're going to have all the information for you there. Interesting in the GT3 that we saw mostly the BMW at the top. And again, Apex 1 locking out the front row. There's all your information. So qualifying is over and the race on Sunday, like Casper said, at 1. We've been your hosts for this qualifying session here in Shanghai. Enjoy the race tomorrow, and thank you so much. Casper, any last words?
No, just enjoy the race.
Goodbye.